Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the
United States
States
of America and
to
to the
the
republic for which it stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty and justice for all.
Just so there's proof, there's my flag that I did it to.
Yeah, that's as far as it goes. So I have to really.
That'll work.
Okay,
There's ours.
we'll start with the approve of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at the latest and greatest agenda, and is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, that the latest one.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
If there's no more discussion on that, we'll start with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yep.
Agenda approved.
Okay, we'll move on to approve the minutes from July 14th board meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look those over? Is
I'll
there,
make a motion to approve the minutes. I read them very thoroughly.
is there, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay.
No more discussion. We'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yep.
Approved.
Yeah. Sure.
Now we'll do the July 21st work group session minutes. Everybody's had a chance to look at those. Is there a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No more discussion. We'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yep.
Okay, now we'll proceed to public comment, and I can't tell if there's any extra people on here or not, but
There are a few extras. Let me see. I'll go down the list here. Mr. Yider is on. Does he wish to make any comments?
No, just observing today. Thank you.
Okay. And let's see. We've got somebody calling in from 3609. Any comments there? I'll unmute from this end, I guess. Caller from 3609, any public comment for the board?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll mute there. And we have another, I'll unmute a caller from 4689. Any public comments for the board?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. No,
It would be nice to know who, although they're not making public comment, it'd be interesting to know who it is.
okay, let me go back then. Caller at 3609. Identify, please.
Eric Wink.
Eric Wink. Okay, thank you. And, oops, hang on. Mute. And then I'll unmute caller at 4689 if you could identify, please.
Yes, good morning. James Hankey with Market and Johnson.
Thank you, sir. And I'll remute. All right, that's the public in attendance. So.
We'll move on to the COVID-19 update from Public Health. Is John on or Heather?
Yep, there's John.
Right.
Let me turn that off.
There you go.
Okay. Just getting set up here. Sorry, guys.
All right.
All right. So Couple of things on a COVID update. As of yesterday, we had 34 confirmed cases in Houston County. Couple of things I would note about that. I may sound like a broken record, but testing capacity for Houston County remains a challenge. And it's a challenge for the region, really. We've worked closely with our partners across the river, La Crosse County Public Health, as well as Gunderson and Mayo, and also working with the Minnesota Department of Health. In places where there's kind of a spike in cases, we frequently see that the capacity for testing gets overwhelmed. That's the case in our region, and as a result, we see it as a real challenge in getting testing done in a timely fashion. So I think I mention that because I think it's fair to assume that our numbers that we publish are significantly understated because of that. As I mentioned, we're working with partners to try and address that. I'm confident that people are doing everything they can. There was a point when I thought that maybe there was a disparity between Houston County and other counties in Minnesota or across the river, and I don't know that that's the case. I will say that if you look at testing capacity across the state of Minnesota, we probably have one of the lower test capacities. And I think that's just a function of where we are and the reality of not having a hospital or a healthcare system that is resident within our county. And we have the vast majority of our citizens are seeking healthcare across the river or in Iowa. So a little bit about what we've been up to. Local public health has been really busy with case investigation and contact tracing. I think we've talked about that before. Some counties do contact tracing and case investigation. Some allow the Minnesota Department of Health to do that. We felt that it's a good use of our resources in that we have a lot of the relationships with folks across the river where MDH doesn't have as good of contacts, and at times even struggles to get good contact information for people who've tested positive across the river. So we've invested very heavily there. We right now have 5 people within the agency who are trained to do case investigation and contact tracing. We're also doing consulting with whoever would request it, as well as we've reached out to different individual organizations and groups such as business groups, child care providers, school districts, and the like. I anticipate that that will continue to grow as we get closer to school starting and kind of other things that are kind of related to the season. So that's a few things that are going on with us. Does anybody have any questions?
I saw that you had 3 more cases this morning.
We do, and that will be posted on our Facebook page and such here today. So that brings our total to 37 with today's update that'll be going out at 11 o'clock.
I guess this question would be for everyone, and that is, are you seeing compliance with the governor's masking order?
Specifically to me, Jack?
Well, to the whole group. I mean, I've been in Quick Trip twice since his order, and both times somebody's in there, a young couple without a mask, a guy without a mask. They will give them one at the counter, but it's a little late in the game. But just wondering if other people are seeing compliance or not.
I've been to Woodman's and Festival, and there was good compliance.
Well, I was at a golf outing on Saturday, and there wasn't a one mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've heard all across the board. I've heard places that are complying. I've heard of those who, even want to take it to a point of civil disobedience. They are opposed to the notion of mandating masks. There are those who obviously feel very strongly about masks and look to us to enforce both the recommendations that were in place prior to the governor's order, as well as now the governor's order. The challenge with that is, how do you go out and chase people down with masks? A lot of it is going to be on the responsibility of business owners and ultimately individuals to do the right thing. I've said to a lot of people, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who dislikes masks more than me. However, I think it is a perfectly reasonable and appropriate measure for us to reduce the spread of COVID. You get lots of arguments when you say that. I will also say that masks are not perfect, but they're better than nothing. And I guess I think from my perspective, it's a neighborly thing to do, to care about those around you. We have a hard time with messaging and getting people to see that masks are really not primarily intended to protect the wearer. They're intended to reduce what you put out in vapor when you speak or breathe or cough or whatever. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing, and I support the governor's order. I think what it does is it reduces the pressure on local municipalities, on local businesses, where some are enforcing it, some aren't. But now that we have a mandate in place, it begs some very challenging enforcement questions. One other thing I'll note is that the research I've looked at recently shows a significant improvement in the spread of COVID in states that have instituted mask mandates. Obviously, in every state, there are people who will resist it. But states that have not done that have a much higher rate of COVID spread. So I don't know. It's a hard issue. It's very controversial. It's unfortunate that probably the greatest public health issue and challenge of our time has been reduced to one of politics, and it's unfortunate. So some of that obviously is my opinion. And the update that I did is an indication of the things that we are spending our time on. I'm not running around evangelizing around masks, but that's where I stand on it.
Well, I appreciate, John, the addition to your updates to point out that the recovered cases and hospitalized, the additional information is helpful.
Thank you.
This lady from Alabama.
It gives a
So she wants to know about the Bush Cemetery and the Money Creek Cemetery.
it gives a different perspective. Or I shouldn't say a different, but a more perspective of the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get into mask mandate. I'm not going to touch that. So
I thought it was interesting what you said, John, about the fact that we don't have testing in the county, that maybe our numbers are a lot higher than we realize.
I think it would be safe to assume that. I think our numbers and the erratic nature of, we see a handful of them and then none. I think it's safe to assume that our numbers are very significantly understated.
I take back what I just said on the mask mandate. I just want to make a point that, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but some people can't wear masks for medical reasons, and they have an exemption for that. What I don't want to have to run across or see this in public is someone being shamed in public for not wearing a mask. And who's to know that they can't wear a mask for medical reasons? And it's not our business to ask why. So I just wanted to point out that maybe for some people that they have a valid reason why they're not wearing one, and I don't feel that it's fair or right to ridicule or publicly shame them. Am I wrong in that thinking?
You're right. There are certain people with different medical conditions. Also, young children are not recommended to wear masks. I think you're right on that. And I don't know that we gain anything by ridiculing people or shaming them or any of that. I don't think we gain anything from the political energy around this. It's a public health issue, and I think to the extent that people can help and do what is being recommended, I think it will be better for all of us. Everybody wants to see the communities and the economy reopen. Everybody wants to see school reopen. They want to see the Twins play. They want to go to Vikings games. For me, I'd go to a Packer game before I went to a Viking game. But we all want to see that. We want to see our hometown schools and their kids playing. We don't want to have drive-through graduations. Everybody wants to get back to life as normal, and none more than us. And I can assure you that the folks in public health here, there's a group who are working virtually every day, and there is no break. The COVID doesn't know holidays, doesn't know weekends, doesn't know time off or any of that. And so we're doing our best to try and mitigate its spread, and we're trying to do it with less than perfect information. It's a novel virus that we're still learning about. And I believe we locally, as well as at the state level and national level, are doing the best to try and mitigate a very, very challenging public health crisis. I don't know if that helped answer your question, Eric, but...
Oh, I agree with everything you said. I just hear stories of, like you say, it's very controversial, and then you hear stories about people yelling at other people because they're not wearing a mask. I hear about that. Recently one in Quick Trip was getting scolded for not wearing a mask, and I don't feel that's right either. So, and we were at Woodman's and been here and there, and I go to Menards. I wear my mask, but when I see someone not wearing a mask, I'm not going to call them out. I just don't feel that's right. Who's to know what the situation is? So that's the only point I was trying to make. I don't want a public confrontation.
Okay, Eric, I don't want to debate this either, but I hear what you're saying, but I'd feel better if I was confident that people are conscientious about it and not, I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched somebody pull into a handicapped parking lot and then jump out and run into the store. So people aren't oftentimes honest about what their situation is. And same thing with smoking. Oh, I'm so nervous I have to have a cigarette and blow it in my face. So there's another side to the issue.
All fair points. I don't know what to say. Very challenging times.
I commend one of our local businesses. They put out word on what their mask policy would be, and address the fact that as a business they have a little steeper penalty for if they choose to comply or not comply. But the tone of their message was essentially, if they see somebody without a mask, their questioning to them would be, are you aware there's a mask policy? If you are and you can wear a mask, please do so next time. They're not going to sit and grill them on if they have a medical condition or not a medical condition. They felt their role was they had a responsibility to inform the individuals that there's a mask mandate, not a responsibility to enforce and shame. So I think that's probably a good approach for a business to take, is,
Yeah.
reminder that there is a policy, and leave it at that.
Good idea.
I agree. It's just, and avoid the confrontation. And I don't think if there's a medical reason for it, that you can ask anybody what that is. That's private information. So that should be pointed out too. Am I wrong in that, John?
No, you're not wrong at that either. I certainly would avoid coming up to somebody and grilling them on their medical conditions or not. Clearly there's lots and lots of energy around this. I think you guys as a county board took a wise step in requiring masks within your facilities. I think that's consistent with the best science that we have right now. Not everybody is going that way. Not every municipality, not every organization, not every individual. But I think, I don't know, I guess all we can do is be responsible for our actions. And I feel strongly about certain things, but I don't feel that it brings any value to the situation to browbeat folks or, get into heated debates. People have strong opinions on this. I'll just say that from a public health perspective, I'm convinced that there's value in it.
Thank you.
Point taken, John. Any more from you?
I don't have anything else unless others have questions. I'm going to stick around because there's a couple more things that you may want to talk to me about on the agenda. So I'll just probably blink off here.
Okay, thanks, John. I appreciate what you and Heather and Audrey and everybody over there are doing. So,
Thank you very much.
okay, now we'll move on to our appointment with Houston County Historical Society budget presentation. Shirley, you're on.
And I did mute you guys, so you need to make sure you're unmute there, Richard. Come on. Well, I was able to mute him on my end, and now I can't unmute him.
Way to go.
I know, yeah.
They're maybe on a computer from the old Historical Society.
Richard, you should have the mute button on the bottom left of your screen there, hopefully. I don't know why it's not letting me unmute him.
Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
All right. Phew.
Hear you.
Okay.
Hi, Shirley Johnson, Houston County Historical Society, and I have Richard Cordes, who is our treasurer.
And I'd just like to say good morning to the commissioners and to Jeff, and a special shout out to my classmate, Greg. Wanted to commend him for his winning his election. So all the best to him.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Don't tell any bad stories about me.
I can be bought.
Not much time.
Yeah, we ain't got that much time.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for the continued support of Houston County, for the Houston County Historical Society. We had a good year in 1919. We had visitors from 29 states and 4 foreign countries. That included 82 Minnesota cities, 44 cities in Wisconsin, and 22 in Iowa. We had 52 new researchers and over 90 individuals, organizations, and businesses donated artifacts to the society. And our last book sale was successful. Over the 24 years, it raised over $104,000. We continue to be an all-volunteer organization, and we have a new volunteer who is working on the pollen glass plate collection. It's cleaning, assessing, and will be digitalized. And she is very qualified, and we have hundreds, if not thousands, of glass plates to do, so this is a real bonus for the society. The coronavirus has had a great impact on the society. Although open by appointment, the society continues their work. We're helping researchers by phone and email, receiving donations, and generally keeping things going. We're also working on the backlog of artifacts by accessioning and taking care of them and getting them on a database. So we continue to be busy, and we are following guidelines. This past year, the society was very fortunate. They were remembered by deceased members with a substantial amount of money, which was placed in the endowment fund to perpetuate the society to go forward in the future. One of the things we're going to be doing this year is replacing the floor finish in the basement. We put on a water-based finish and it is not holding up, so we're having to take it off and redo it, and this will probably cost about $50,000, but we will take money out of our the money that we were donated to last year for this. And repairs need to be made to the Mayville Town Hall, and we have much painting to do this year. And of course, the visitor count is down this year. And we, it's a sad thing because we enjoy having the people stop in. We were planning to have our 60th anniversary and grand opening of our new building this year, but it has been delayed, and we're hoping that we can have it next year. If there's any questions, I'd appreciate looking at them, and we thank you again for the continued support. It is so appreciated.
Thank you, Shirley. I just have one question on your endowment. Are you allowed to spend that money on your endowment fund, or?
Yeah, the way we have it set up, that if the board so votes on it, we could take some monies out of that for certain expenditures.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, the majority of it would be to be saved for perpetuating the whatever comes in the future.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions from anybody?
I think you do a very good job, and I don't think Dick has an appointment, but he's stopping by this morning.
Oh. Okay, we'll be looking for him. Thanks for the heads up. We can lock the door.
Yeah.
And if you would ever like to come as a group or individually, we'd like to, take you through the new museum. Perhaps you've been through it. I know Teresa has, and maybe some of the others have, but I haven't. I probably wasn't there when you came, so we would like to show you what we're doing.
It's beautiful.
Keep up the good work.
Any other questions?
Bob?
Well, can I ask a question with regard to the action items later?
Yes. Yep.
The 5,000 in the action items, is that an addition for this year, or is that a request for next year?
Is that directed to us?
Somebody, I don't know, Jeff?
Okay, so could you repeat the question, please?
in the action items, there's a $5,000 request.
Oh,
Is that a request for additional funds for this year, or is that a request for next year's budget?
No, my understanding is they had a contingent allocation. We do the annual allocation, and then there's a contingent allocation upon them presenting a review of the budget
a matching fund.
and a matching funds to show that they've had at least that much in donations.
Correct.
And so it's the approval of that
I
matching funds.
questioned that yesterday, Bob, and Carol sent me a real detailed explanation of it. We budgeted for each year, but they requested if they get the matching funds for additional 5,000. And that's what this is.
And who does that?
Over and above the budget.
Above,
I
but it is budgeted, but it's above the 37,000 appropriation. But
Correct.
we did budget for it in the budget.
Correct. Yes.
Carol, did you wish to add anything?
Yeah, just that it's gone on, I guess, for as long as I can remember, and I've been here a little while. So it's if the Historical Society raised funds on their own, the county would match up to $5,000. And we do budget it each year, and they're presenting their financial statements so that we can verify that they did it. The board has really already approved the additional appropriation. This is just whether we cut the check or not.
But it's for this year, not next year.
Yes, this
All right.
year.
Or this year.
That was my only question. What year?
Okay.
So Carol, what is our annual donation? Is it 37 or 66?
No, it's 37. Carol sent me a copy of it, so.
Yeah, they're showing the 66 in theirs because last year, we typically pay it twice a year, but we had kind of missed the first one, so we just sent it all in one lump sum. So it looks like they got an extra one last year.
I see.
For now, yeah,
Okay.
anyway.
So if you look at their first page and their projected operating revenue, it shows the Houston County levy and matching funds at 42,500. So that's the 37,500 plus this 5,000.
I just was curious what year, that's all. Thank you.
And that 37 is that we're required by that, right, Teresa?
Yes, well, it's a state, we have to support our historical society.
Right.
But you do determine the amount. That's not dictated by the state.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a percent amount or a
No.
set of something. Okay. Any other questions?
No, sir.
I just got a comment on that. We have not asked for an increase in our appropriation for,
Many years.
we're talking many, many years. Ever since the first recession hit, we did not feel comfortable asking for any more money, and we've held with that philosophy going forward. We're just very thankful we're getting, the county has a tight budget too, so we're just very thankful to get what we're getting.
I think last year we had about 7,500 volunteer hours.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's not any more questions for Sherry and Richard, we can move on to our consent agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? We'll proceed with roll call vote.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes,
5.
Yep.
Motion passes. Just a quick comment on there. Of course, we We thank Dar for her 22 years of service. Certainly will be missed in the licensing center. She's been recognized in the past as one of the local experts in the office, and is a resource to many aside from us here. We are working on an expedited search to fill her position, and the advertisement's on the street, and I think it's Thursday that job position application period closes. And so we're hoping to interview early next week and get somebody hired in and maximize our training time with Dar before she's finished on the 14th. So
I echo that with that. Dar's been a good employee, and
Yep.
hate to see her go, but it's all understandable. So if we'll move on to action items. Action item number 1, consider approving the contingent allocation of $5,000 to the Houston County Historical Society.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I researched this pretty heavily yesterday.
Yeah, I could tell with all the emails there.
I kept you informed. Well, originally, our original agenda had 4,000, and I was thinking it was for the Ag Society, and so that's where it started it all. So this is a correct action now.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Excuse me, yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yep.
Teresa, you're too anxious there.
Oh, well, I spent a little time on this, as you know.
Okay. Consider approval of the addendum to 2020-2021 agreement between Houston County and CEDA for the CARES Act Economic Assistance Support. This is for the additional day a week from a CEDA employee to help us with our CARES Act grant.
Correct.
So is there a motion? And this cost should be covered by our CARES Act money that we got from the federal. So,
Yes, yeah, correct. The total cost will be approximately $6,440, and should be covered under the CARES money.
is there a motion to approve this?
So move.
Move to approve.
All right, second.
I'll write it down as Miller and Burns. Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Well, this is a contract though, right, Jeff? We don't have payroll tax liability or anything on.
No, it's just an addendum to the contract with CEDA.
Okay.
If no other discussion, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yep.
Thank you. Passes.
Action number 3, consider approval of resolution 2040 PHHS TZD grant. Okay, John, what is that?
Towards Zero Death Grant.
It's a fun acronym, if nothing else,
Mhm.
right? Let's see here. Trying to bring there we go. All right.
So I was just gonna say there's two grant resolutions. The first one closes out the 2019 to 2020 program. The second one initiates the 2021 program, and I'll let John cover the program details.
I'll just say a few words on it. Also, Heather Myrie is on the call now, so she can chime in as well. In addition to COVID, we do have other programs, and TZD is one of those. We collaborate with law enforcement and with the Department of Transportation and others in doing, from a public health perspective, it's primarily messaging. And this is kind of an unusual grant in that they ask for a board resolution to apply for the grant. We'll have to come back to you once we know if the grant is approved and for how much. So you hear about TZD a couple of times before it actually is kind of cast in stone. So Heather, do you want to add anything about some of the specific initiatives and things that we're involved in with that?
I mean, it is a traffic safety grant, and we work with law enforcement, school, and community partners. It's taken a little bit different turn this year, obviously because of COVID. So we've really been in communication with the state Department of Public Safety. They want us to continue with this grant application as if it were a normal year. So we are doing that under their direction, realizing that we may have to make some adjustments to what we're doing, certainly if schools are adjusted in their session and as well as within the community. Making those adjustments wouldn't be a cost that we would incur. That grant would cover any adjustments that would need to be made as far as staff time and things like that. So it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be in addition to what we are already doing. There's a specific there is a specific salary amount that would be allotted to that grant. And then that is what Audrey, part of her time would be to address those activities.
Sure, Bob.
Couple of questions. Towards zero death, why is it through Public Health Human Services instead of through the Sheriff's Department?
The Sheriff's Department's Towards Zero Death is their piece of it is enforcement. So the grant that they get is specific to overtime enforcement of the different speed waves, DUI waves, the different traffic safety waves that the Department of Public Safety really puts on the calendar every year. The Department of Public Safety wants an education component to TZD, the 5 E's, education, enforcement, EMS, engineering. Brian's on there. He might have to help me in forgetting the other one. But there's 5 E's that are involved in that. So law enforcement is a component of that, and we do work closely, but their grant dollars are a separate grant from ours. Ours is related to education specifically. Theirs is related to the overtime enforcement that the state asked them to do during the various waves. Does that answer your question?
You oversee all of these E's, or are you just do a grant application for your E?
Yeah, we just do a grant application for our E, but the resolution similar to what you guys are looking at today and considering today, we get those kind of a letter of support from our partner E's. So we just oversee our education piece. We don't provide oversight to any of the other ones, but we work with all of those partners. So essentially what the state wants us to do is say, hey, we like your grant application. We know you're going to do this. Just get us a letter to kind of say, hey, you've talked to all of these partners and they're on board with the work that you're going to do, which, is fairly customary in grants like this that require a letter of support. But
are there 5 grants or one grant you oversee it and distribute?
We are applying for one grant and we only oversee our grant. And so one component of our grant is something called a fatal review committee. So when there's that's between Fillmore and Houston. So if and when there's a traffic fatality, that group gets together, and if there might be, if there's a pattern that develops on a certain roadway, engineering, enforcement, EMS, and education kind of get together and look at that. Is there something else that can be done? Is it a distraction? Is it something with the roadway itself? Those have been addressed over a history of time, over the years between the 2 counties and with the assistance from MnDOT and the state and different things. But the grant we are applying for is just for our agency, Public Health and Human Services, and for our work that we say we're going to do in the work plan. It's not to provide oversight or redistribute those funds in any way to partners.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to see 5 applications come before the board.
No. If law enforcement, it's just one. It's just us. It's just public health. We just work with our partners to get letter of support saying, yes, Houston County Public Health and Human Services, we will support that effort and work with you as a partner. I can't speak to the Sheriff's Department's grant, that enforcement grant that they write. I don't know the timing of that because it is strictly enforcement, and that's obviously not a responsibility we have.
So
Does that
who's
get-
of the 5 East? So Brian from Houston County Highway Department has
Yep.
his one.
There's
He gotta
education.
write a grant. Sheriff is for enforcement. They got to write a grant. Your education.
Yeah, Brian doesn't write a grant. He can speak to that, but there's education, enforcement, EMS, engineering, and what is the fifth one?
Everyone else.
Everyone else. Is that, Brian, what your word is? Okay. I get it so ingrained in my head that
Yes. So
And to address your question, Bob, the Public Health and Human Services have a grant for the education piece of it. The Sheriff's Office has routinely submitted a grant for the enforcement side of it. Brian, if you want to add anything else from
yeah,
your perspective.
from the highway side, we submit stuff to the state for funding. If we get approved for funding, then we come to the board for acceptance of that grant at that time. So we don't apply for a small grant. For us, if we have a large project that has a safety specific component to it.
I think the point of the grant is that we've got is to collaborate between these different entities, recognizing there's an education, an engineering, an enforcement, EMS, and one other Phantom E that are important in thinking through how we can reduce fatalities on our roadways.
So who do we educate?
we work with schools, we work with the community. A lot of this grant is based in data, so we can't, a county has to have an increased statistics with that speed is an identified issue or distracted driving is an identified issue. There's a handful of counties in the state that can apply for alcohol impairment grants because they have a higher proportion of DUIs that are written in their county. So they have more in the metro, more population centered counties. They have that because of their alcohol impaired driving.
Well, I've been a frequent critic of this program, so I'd be remiss not to do it one more time. I'm going to the cities tomorrow for grandsons having birthdays today and tomorrow. We're going for a distance party, but as I drive up Highway 52 with the big signs for zero death corridor, I'll experiment and drive 80, and then I'll report at the next meeting how many people passed me. There's zero enforcement.
I think you speak to the reason for this kind of work, and that would be more in the counties that 52 goes through.
I understand that, but it's a statewide program that I think is throwing money away.
Well, I know my ticket came because of it, so.
And it is a federal program. Actually, it is NHTSA dollars, so it's federal funds that get funneled down to the state level.
Right. It's federal, not state, right?
Right. At the state, our state Department of Public Safety administers that federal grant.
Yep.
And the 50 is another arm of enforcement. It's emergency medical services, engineering, education at the public health level, the county, sheriff's department, and local law enforcement.
See, I knew it coming into it.
Bob, you got to slow down and enjoy Hoka when you go through.
I have slowed down and enjoyed the Root River before I even cross it.
Did we use it to help bring speakers to the high school about texting and driving, distracted driving?
Yes, we have used that in the past. Yes, Teresa, for that. And we actually had another speaker scheduled for this past April, which obviously needed to be rescheduled and redone. And you know, and Jack, I can certainly I see your point with that with this grant, and the TZD grant really does look at very specific enforcement times when it comes to the waves. this grant isn't necessarily meant to look at the 24/7, speed. Certainly, we've all been on the road when we've seen a time where speed was an issue with someone or a distraction was an issue. And unfortunately, they can't be everywhere for enforcement. So I can understand where your remarks are coming from, certainly.
Well, and I do appreciate your efforts to educate. I mean, no matter what the issue is, to try to educate people to improve it is worth it, I guess. I just get irritated because of that stretch that I drive so often. It says the other sign is turn on your headlights for safety. So I count the number of headlights that are on. And it's about a third of the people. And it just seems like that stretch doesn't get near the attention it needs. And that's not Houston County. So enough from me.
One last thing I'd mention for everyone is I think the point of public health efforts on this is change in community perceptions over time. The thought of driving with an infant out of a car seat today seems unconscionable. I can't even imagine seeing a baby in a car without a car seat. That's really a tribute to years and years and years of slow progress in messaging, education, collaborative efforts that have made that kind of just a norm now. Another one is, it'd be really weird to sit in a movie theater and see people smoking. Public health initiatives, by definition, they kind of chip away at things over time, and hopefully over time, those messages begin to change public perception, and then that changes behavior. It's not 100%. I'm sure you drive long enough, you could find somebody with a baby sitting on their lap, but it's a pretty rare occurrence now. I know for myself, probably most everybody sitting on this call rode around in parents' vehicles without seat belts and things. My job was to crawl under the seat and snip the wires so it stopped chirping at my dad. So, I mean, public perception and what we do changes over time. And I think our collaborative efforts, both from the stick side of it with enforcement and statute, as well as public messaging, education efforts in schools, slowly changes public perception and then actual behavior. So just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I can verify that back when I was a kid, our crew cab pickup was a single cab pickup and the rest of us got in the back of it. So
yeah,
so we rode around. So we've come a long way.
They discontinued the Sears catalogs to sit on, so.
Yeah. That's the way I got to football practice in Goose Gornick's back of Goose Gornick's pickup truck. And that was harder than any football practice I ever had. So things change over time. And I was fortunate that I didn't get hurt or killed. Pretty foolish thing to do. So, and I can't imagine seeing that today. One other last thing I'd say about this is, it's really not related to towards zero death, but I think you're going to start to see us bringing things forward which are preparing us for the coming year. We're going to be talking about budget soon and preparing for different things that are core to public health and human services. A lot of things have been put on hold because of the COVID crisis. Heather and I had some conversations about this and said, should we do this? Should we not? And I said, look, there is a day on the other side of COVID, and this is central to public health's mission. So that's why we bring it forward today.
Do you need a motion to approve the resolution for the TDZ?
Resolution number 2040.
Yeah, just to clarify, there is only one resolution to this grant. There is not one to close out the grant. That was just for reference. So there is just the 2021 resolution.
So that'd be the 2041 resolution. Yep. Is that a motion, Teresa?
Yes.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any more discussion? I hope not. Okay. We'll receive a roll call. District 1,
Yes.
District 2, yes. District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yep.
Motion carried.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks. Got that. I'll clean the numbers up so it's the 2021 grant under the right resolution number. Thanks.
Thank you.
You'll likely see us again then if the state awards the grant. Again, we do a lot of grants. This one's kind of unusual with its resolutions and times before the board.
Okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, Heather.
You guys have a good day. I'm gonna head off to bigger and, well, not bigger, but other things.
Okay.
Gotta watch what I say. Good. Okay. Have a good one.
All right, you too. All right. Action number 5, consider approval of contract with Selco for 2021. Who wants to take this up? Teresa, Jeff?
Well, Bob and I met with the library directors and Selco director last Tuesday afternoon, and we had quite a detailed discussion and saw their budget in entirety. And we did make the proposal that we brought up to you as to be considered with the 1.5% increase for 1 year. They said they would get back to us. They had to talk to their other directors and let us know. And Jeff confirmed yesterday that they did get back to him. I don't know if Bob saw anything, but
I did.
I did not. So, but
And
they went with the 1 year contract at 1.5%, which is how much was it, Bob? $2,000.
$2,500.
$2,500. But a 1 year contract so we can renegotiate it next year.
good.
That all said, after negotiations and everything, I make a motion to approve the Selco contract for 1 year with a 1.5% increase.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yep.
Passes.
Okay, we'll move on to action item number 6, consider acceptance of bid offer for a construction manager contract and authorize the highway building committee to negotiate a final contract for board approval. Brian, are you on this one?
Yeah.
You're
So this,
so I'm just,
yep. So, I think all the commissioners are aware, we had 10 construction manager submittals for review. The building committee has recommended 3 to go on for interviews. The board interviewed those 3 firms here 2 weeks ago. And at this time, we would like the board to have some discussion as far as what direction you want the county to go, as far as, do you want us to negotiate with a firm, or what are you ready to do?
what are our feelings? Okay, Bob.
I think the interviews all went well with the 3 contractors that we're in to discuss. Strictly on a financial basis, I think all 3 of the contractors could do the job and could do a very good job for the county. Strictly on a contractual basis, on a cost basis, when I look at the 3 of them, Weiser Brothers with 1.25% of the contract as far as their revenue from the project was the lowest. Then it went to 185 and 195. So from a strictly a financial point of view, Weiser Brothers has doesn't matter what size the contract is, 5 million, 5.5 is 1.25%. So just on that basis, they're the lower cost. Their other items were basically the same except for engineering. The architect engineering was less than the other 2 firms. And there may be something that's not quite included, but that'll have to be negotiated. But on the 1.25%, just on that basis, they're the lower cost item and the lower cost contractor. The fact that they have 50 employees and pay a large amount of real estate taxes in Houston County also does not hurt their status as far as this contract is concerned. That's my input.
Anybody else?
So at this time, we're looking for a motion to move forward.
Right.
I'll make that motion to approve the Weiser Brothers for the building, for the county construction management negotiations.
Second.
Any more discussion? I just want to echo what Bob said. I agree with what he said on that. I too felt they were all three very capable and had a very good presentation. But strictly on a cost standpoint, Weiser Brother were the cheaper on their management fee. So
Well, I agree. I agree with Bob and everybody. I think we need to go with Weiser Brothers.
if there's no more discussion, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yep.
Okay.
I would ask Brian when, and the committee, when this goes into discussion as far as scheduling and whatnot, what is the plan as far as the rock building, storage of wintertime rock? Is that going to be built yet this fall before the rock building is taken down, or is it going to be the building is left up until next spring? Just from the perspective of function.
Well, I think that's where we got to get to as far as to figure out the sequence of how we're going to do this, and without any interruption in our operations as far as office and sand and gravel. So,
Leave
yep.
Yeah, that I have told my maintenance supervisor not to fill the rock shed up yet until we have a better understanding of exactly what we're going to have for impacts for this winter. The very first meeting with them, I want to talk about any potential impact. Number one is the rock shed, our sand and salt pile getting in out of the building with the equipment. So that's, day one meeting with the contractors. So when we have that meeting here, and whether it's a week or two from now or a month from now, that's going to be the top priority, is figuring out how we're going to be impacted this winter.
Okay. We'll move on to discussion items. Jeff, you have any updates?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. It has been requested that we do a regular meeting session at the beginning of the upcoming workshop schedules, so we'll advertise that and put that on there, and allow for actionable items, a brief period for actionable items at our workshops over the next, especially the next few months as we deal with CARES Act funding and decisions. From a CARES Act perspective, we're still working on consolidating a list of eligible county expenses and potential programs to allocate money towards. And so we're not ready to bring that proposal to the board yet, but are working on that. From the business economic assistance perspective, we're making good progress there. We have a just about finalized copy of the application process, And in fact, I was going to bring it up and read a couple bits of it here. What we're looking at there is, as has been discussed, is up to a $5,000 loan per business. We are looking at small businesses defined as under 50 employees or an annual revenue under 5 million. Must be a for-profit business with a physical location in Houston County and be registered properly with the state. Current in all property taxes and other obligations to the county and valid licenses and such. So right now, I think we're working towards releasing this to the public on August 14th, and I think we're on track to do that. We've had discussions with the cities and several of the townships on potentially consolidating money for that. My goal is to get a letter out to the county, the cities and the townships this week with a synopsis of our program and invite them to participate. At the EDA board level, we've discussed a few different options as far as either consolidated application with our county program and then sending that list to the cities and townships to see which businesses they wish to fund. However, we think the best way to manage it would actually be to give the cities and townships the opportunity to transfer their money to the county so that we have one program and one process going forward. So that's what I will be proposing to the cities and townships after those discussions.
I think it should be noted that this is just a draft. It isn't finalized because we have an August 5th EDA meeting coming up. Yep. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here as far as if we're sharing this with the cities. There's only going to be one operation, and it's the county one. Mm-hmm. For our portion. Yep. If the cities want to bring their money to the county to participate in our program, that's fine.
Yep.
And encouraged. But I don't think we should be sharing applications with the cities and have them do their own. I mean, that'd be too confusing for people.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's what that is what we will lay out to them as the option if they wish to participate with us. They should transfer the funds. And what we've got on the top of on the introduction on the application, it says, on the introduction, it says the Houston County Board of Commissioners has allocated 1.1 million of county CARES Act funds. And then we've got a blank there where we can say, and the cities of, Caledonia, La Crescent, et cetera, have allocated X amount of funds. So the easiest way to manage this would be for the cities and townships to put their money to the county and into this program. And so that's what we'll lay out to them.
Jack?
Excuse me. I think it's important to, Jeff, point out that we encourage townships to apply for the money.
Yes. Yep.
If they don't apply, obviously they don't get it.
Yep.
And if they plan on not using it, we'd like them to transfer it to the county rather than send it back to the state.
Yep. Yeah, that's about $169,000 allocated to the townships, and so yeah, that will be first thing on the letter is a reminder of how to do that. And we've been talking weekly with the cities for the last 3 weeks. Townships have been part of that discussion for the last week or two, but not all townships have been on the call. So I want to send a letter out to every township so they all see and have the information.
So you're going to do that this week, Jeff?
Yeah. I was hoping to get it out yesterday. I've got it drafted. I just haven't finished the letter yet. So hopefully today, and I'll shoot you a copy before I hit send.
Okay. Teresa.
Yeah.
Teresa had her hand up first, so I got to call on her.
Okay, I just want to ask, when you were reading the sample draft, it said loan. This isn't really a loan.
No.
No. This would be a grant. Yep.
Okay. The word loan was in there that I caught, and I know people have asked me if they have to pay it back, so that's got to be clarified. And will this application be online?
Yeah. We will use the EDA webpage
okay.
as the source, and then we've got a separate email address that we have set up at the county, and that the application must be submitted via email to that address, and we will use the date timestamp of receipt on at that email address as the delineator for first come first serve if it comes to that.
And we all have a copy of that email so we can.
Yeah. I'll share all the details with everybody before we go live with it. Yep.
And I think we need to, and when we get the final application finalized, and approved by the EDA board, we should have Sam look it over to make sure it's all legal.
Yep.
We don't miss anything.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, the version I have now, I'm going to send over to Sam as well, and we'll have him look at it now. And then if there's any changes, we'll have him re-review it.
Very good.
What? Oh,
It's your
my
turn.
question is, we have a $5,000 cap in the county, correct, on this grant?
Yeah, it's up to 5,000. So a real small business can apply for one or two if they feel that's all they need. But yeah, up to 5,000.
So what happens if the city of Caledonia decides to go on their own and do their own programs and they give out $7,000-8,000 to the businesses?
One of the things we ask on the application process, on the application form itself, is a series of, can you demonstrate lost revenue? Is your business in compliance? Are you current with your taxes, et cetera? And then we also ask which of the following, to identify which funding relief sources they've reached out to already. So have they applied for the pandemic unemployment assistance? Have they applied for the Paycheck Protection Program? Have they received economic injury, disaster loan, the state small business emergency loan, assistance from your municipality, or any other? It won't necessarily prohibit them from receiving the grant from us, but at least we can review it and make sure that they're not double dipping for the same expenses.
Right. It doesn't disqualify them. It just gives us a notification of what their past monies have been in. So, Jack?
Just wanted to clarify, and Jeff mentioned this, that the applications should be by email. And the reason for that was on the first come, first served basis, the mail would be an absolute nightmare. So this way you can see exactly when the email came in.
Yep. Easier to track.
Yes.
Greg, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
Well, I was just curious, like Caledonia, can they set whatever they want, or do they got to kind of go to what we got for a plan?
No, they have their own pot of money. They can create their own program. They have to follow the same, federal and state rules that we have to follow. But they certainly can have their own program if they wish to.
So, like the business in Houston get 5,000, and Caledonia decides to give 7,500 out. So that's just the way it is.
That is, and then that's why we've been trying to talk to them to hopefully, like I say, we may not have the same program, but we can at least be in sync and try and have a fair approach to it across the county. But again, if the cities wish to do something different than that, it's on. They have their own pot of money to do with.
So in other words, there's a lot of gray area.
Well, no, it's just if there's going to be two different programs. The city's going to have their own, and the county's going to have ours. The reason we went to 5,000, we thought that was a fair number. That if there's 220 businesses that apply, money will be gone. So I mean, if there's only going to be 100 or 50, then there'll be some money left over, and we could do a phase 2 of the money left over. So. And we could cover some businesses that got missed or didn't qualify in the first round. So you got to do it somehow. I mean, that's
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a good indicator of what the need is out there, nor time to do separate surveys and all that. The 1.3 million divided up, by 5,000, is potentially 260 grants awarded. There's over 400 businesses registered in the county. So, we've discussed the $5,000 grant might mean a whole lot to to a restaurant, a catering company, but may not mean much to a Mikan or a John Deere dealership. Just pulling ones at random. But I think it will certainly go a long way to help the small businesses, and then depending on the need, we can reevaluate opening that aperture.
And that was what our intention was, is to help the small businesses. Just to correct you, 260 would be overspent. So,
Quick math on the calculator in public, sorry.
One question with regard to the application, doing it online. It's not mandatory online, is it? I mean, some people that may not have access, they can still do a written application, or do they got to find somebody that they can do it?
somebody doesn't have access to email, they can contact EDA. Sometimes she will help with the application.
Okay.
You're becoming real garbled, Eric.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, if we get an application by paper, we would certainly accept it. It would get, we'd do our best to timestamp accurately when we received it and treat it accordingly.
Okay.
Commissioner Ross. I can go first.
Bob and I have the library meeting is all I have.
You want me to go? Okay. Greg and I went to an airport meeting yesterday, and we've had airport meetings before, to discuss their budget and whatnot, and to look at where they're at. Last year, there was a zero budget for this year. I mean, this year was a zero levy. Next year, because of things that are going on, I mean, there's, we have an engineering firm helping with the 20-year plan. And to get started, you need an environmental study. And as it stands right now, the feds pay 90%, the state pays 5%, and we locally share 5%. That 5% from the state may be going away next year, so we're kind of the opinion that we maybe want to take advantage of it while we can. And there's three things that need to be taken care of. One is the environmental study, which is $60,000, a little more than. 5% of that is $3,000. There's a culvert that runs underneath the runway, which is, the part under the runway isn't too bad, but the where it goes in, where the water goes in is in real bad shape, where it comes out is getting bad. So there's a proposal to line that like we do culverts along the highway and protect that culvert and extend its life. Brian's estimate was $141,000. So there's about $7,100 at 5%. And then there's a card reader requirement. We got grant money to put in the fuel system out there. And there's a card reader requirement, which the state says either you can do it. If you don't get it done on a certain point in time, then you're going to have to foot the bill for all of it. That cost is, we got a grant to put it in the first place. So that cost, our 5% would be $1,500 on that, which the total of those three is about $11,600. So I rounded it up and said $12,000 is what we're going to have to add to next year's budget in order to facilitate the needs of the airport. Where do we get to $12,000? We've got $40,000 that we've put into the commissioner's budget, and it's for unknown things. I think we would, $2,500 of that came out for the library. I think the $12,000 would come out for the airport, and we should drop that probably to $20,000 next year in order to stay with a zero increase on the budget on the library, the airport, and the commissioner's budget. Yes, sir.
I believe there is at least one airport that we lent money to. I
Oh, yeah.
wonder if some of that is recoverable to cover the 12 grand.
Well, all that money is used for airport projects, that's true. But we always have to have the 5% match. We can't have 100%. So we are using some of that money for these projects, like the culvert at 141,000. Most of that, 90% of that is from that federal money, 5% from the state aviation, and 5% local. These are all the local participations that I'm talking about. We can't use any of that money that we've got in the reserve, be it in the reserve or borrowed. That can be only the 90% part.
Okay, thank you.
What's the environmental review for?
For future airport expansion.
Is that necessary?
The use of the airport, in order to expand the airport's ability, right now we're at the smallest airport level that there is, and our usage is just over the minimum that it requires in order to get this $150,000 a year. If we go with the 20-year plan like the engineers are putting together, acquire some land, do some expansion, we can then go up to twin engine planes and be able to expand the usage of the airport. I mean, we have people that call and look for hangars. We have people that call and look for using the airport. We have people that call, and I'll get to this as far as the convenience car, but we need to expand in order to accommodate growth over the next 20 years. So it's not we got to do it right away, but it's an upcoming thing, and to maintain that 150,000 that we get from the feds and keep going forward that way.
So are all the hangars leased out now?
I didn't understand.
The hangars leased out now?
All the hangars except 2 have leased and are in use. Some of the people calling looking for a little bigger hangar than what we've got available. And so the plan that has been put together for the committee shows land acquisition, shows new hangars, shows the removal of some hangars that are actually in the way of the runway, right of way, I guess you could call it. So it's an expansion over a 20-year period.
So if we would acquire land.
Pardon?
Who would buy land for
Eric, we can't hear you.
I'll have to get off and get back on.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead. You guys can go ahead and take whoever's turn.
And this is a 20-year budgetary plan, which does not have to be exactly followed. I'll wait for Eric to get back. As far as the land is concerned, I will report on the convenience car. We found where Fillmore County's insurance for their convenience car that they provide is $400 a year, which is a relatively inexpensive insurance. We do have cars then in our fleet that we're going to close out, so we could take one of those older vehicles and use it at the airport as a convenience car, and providing the $400 insurance. We only really need it for like April through September, maybe October, because in the wintertime we don't have much demand as far as people flying in and using the airport. I'm going to contact Spring Grove. I'm going to contact Caledonia and see if they'd be willing to participate, like $100 or something towards the insurance, and look at it from that point of view. We do have a fair number. I mean, last week we had 3 people call looking for, wondering if we had a convenience car. One guy was coming to do some work at the post office. One guy was looking to do something in Spring Grove. So there is a demand, not a real heavy demand, but there are people looking to use a convenience car, which would benefit the airport as far as more people flying in and using the airport from that perspective. So I think it might be something worthwhile to try. As far as the land that you talked about, Eric, for the expansion, we'd have to talk to Mr. Barth about a 7.3 acre acquisition along the airport runs kind of from from the southeast to the northwest. It would be along that westerly side behind his house and across where that pond sits and whatnot by the airport, in order to accommodate new hangar space and expanded hangars. We wouldn't build the hangars unless there was a demand, or we could lease out the lot spot and they could build their own hangar, which would be considerably cheaper and it wouldn't cost the county anything as far as the construction. Construction requirements for hangars built by the county are different than if it's done by an individual. This is all based on a 20-year plan, so we don't have to do anything right away, but that environmental study is the very first thing that has to be done before you can even consider acquisition of land or doing anything else. The culvert, that's a maintenance item.
Yeah. So can you guys hear me better now, or?
Yep.
Okay. I might have missed it, Bob, but on the land acquisition, who pays for that? The county or the
Land
Fed?
acquisition can be done through that money that we get from the Fed. So 90% of it can come from that money, 5% from the state if it's still there, and 5% from the county.
Okay.
So the real difference is gonna be if they give us the 5 or the 10 down the road. And then back to what you said about, do we have to have them guys come in and do this? Well, ordinary, to get our federal money, we gotta have that plan. Correct, Bob?
Right. The feds require you have a plan.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to follow perfectly. So that's my airport report. Next, Greg and I had a finance committee meeting this morning. You want to talk on that, Greg?
Keep right on going, you're doing good.
Okay. Finance committee meeting. We have, we're at 50%, it's at the end of June is what the report was at. And we're at 50% of the year. We've had 54% of the expenses paid. Some of this is annual expenses that are paid in advance, so it's a little bit deceiving. But we've also had 54% of revenue, so we're up a little bit on revenue from other sources and whatnot. But we're running at a balance right now of 54% received, 54% paid, which we're actually in pretty decent shape. Wait and see what the second half brings and what happens with the state on our funding. But at the present time, we're sitting pretty good as far as finance is concerned. Next item, parks. Dick and I went down and talked to the guy in Houston that's making the sign for Bocce Park. He's going to send us the presentation of what it's going to look like, how it's going to read, as far as the rules for the park, what they can do in the park, and things of that nature. So that's coming, and I'll get that to you as soon as I've got that. The park has been mowed. The trail has been mowed. County forces went down and mowed the trail, and I'm thinking they put weed killer on the trail too, to make it a usable trail. Dick has been in contact with a Boy Scout troop that a Boy Scout is looking for a project, and we could have him do the project at the park. The park at Botcher could use a picnic area and could use some fencing along a bank where we don't have, and I'm talking a split rail fence, where we don't have any protection from the trail to walk down to the parking lot. So he's going to talk to them about that with regard to county support to make a picnic area. Part of the project could be to make a couple, 2 or 3 bench or picnic tables, and then put that split rail fence up. Don't know if they provide the materials or if we have to provide the materials for the park. I'm going to propose that we continue with the $1,500 budget for Botcher Park next year, same as this year, no increase, but same as this year, so that we can get the park in a more usable phase. Right now, it's just going to be trail purposes, park on the parking lot and walk the trail. Next year, we could have the picnic area involved with it as well, so that we've got a little more usage of the park and more people might want to go to the park to use it. Last item I'll bring up is I went to the city council last night. I mentioned it earlier to some people to listen to their discussion with regard to the mask. They were talking about doing a resolution to send to the governor saying that they did not agree and did not like mask wearing because he didn't give any of the science as to how come He didn't give any time frame as far as when that mask usage is going to go off. And he didn't take into consideration that, like Houston County, is considerably less COVID cases in comparison to like the metro area. But in listening to John, I mean, we have less testing down here than they do up there. And it's hard to say what our actual COVID cases really are. I told him I'm here as an individual resident of the city, not as a commissioner from Houston County. But I told him that in my opinion, the state of Minnesota is doing a pretty good job because our numbers are going down and because we're taking, action against the COVID, and that, I know people don't like wearing the mask. None of us do, but I think it's one more thing that we can use to help defer. There was one member of the council said we should just forget the mask and forgive everything and let it run through and do its course and be done with it. That's true. It could be done that way, but I don't think it's fair to the general public to do something like that if we can help try and avoid it and overcome it, and at least wait until we've got a vaccine of some sort to help people to deal with the COVID. But that was my discussion. I did not stay all for the entire city council meeting, so I don't know what they actually did as far as their vote on that. But
I heard they tabled it.
okay. At any rate, there was one person that was at the meeting that said that they have young people that work in their businesses and they were not going to subject them to having to deal with people that wanted to argue about wearing a mask or not. They would ask if they'd wear a mask if they weren't going to make an argument out of it. If they don't, they don't. And as far as enforcement, I don't think anybody's going to go running around looking for people not wearing masks. If there's arguments, if there's fights or something.
We don't want to see that, no.
We don't want to see that. So, but that's the only reason I think anybody from the various enforcement agencies in the county are going to be going to look for. They aren't going to be stopping and counting masks. That's the extent of my longest report I've ever had.
Okay. Greg, you had to add anything?
He pretty much covered pretty much all of it. I guess I ain't so much this year, but it's going to be next year. That's going to be the tough one. So unless they do some cuts this year, but I'm hoping we don't have any cuts this year. But it's already looking like we're going to have a lot of cuts next year. So we're probably going to have to tighten it down a little.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, you got anything?
My time has been spent primarily on the EDA meetings, and I've been in on the meetings with Jeff on cities and townships as far as the CARES money is concerned, personnel meetings over the license center. So that's pretty much consumed my time. I would mention that I've been in contact with Aaron on two issues. Some of you may have gotten the same email I did. From a constituent and on a building issue. After quite a lengthy discussion with Aaron yesterday, I'm satisfied that he's following the procedure as it should be followed. I've been questioned about the Adnet quarry. Bob, Planning Commission seen that, or?
Greg.
Yeah, we just got notice. I got the paperwork on it yesterday. I haven't got through it all, but it sounds like they want to open up another quarry down there adjacent to the one that there is there.
Yeah, 30 some acres. And again, spoke at length with Aaron about it. It sounds like it's being presented very well. I think they have Matthew doing their planning for them, and
I think Millstone's going to be doing the work in the quarry. I'm not positive on that, but I mean,
yeah.
So far what I've read, it looks pretty good. I mean, he's done a good job of covering all the bases.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I've got.
I mean, unless something pops up between here and Thursday, I think it's pretty well documented. Everything looks good. So,
Okay.
Okay, Bob.
I just want to expand on what Jack had said with regard to that constituent with the building issue. We all, I think, got the email from that person. I responded to his email only to the extent to say that he should be continuing to work with zoning on that. I, as an individual commissioner, do not make any decisions. That's a decision of the board. And that, I wasn't going to go one way or the other as far as what his request and his discussion was. He's got to work with planning and with the zoning office in order to get that squared away.
Yeah, likewise.
well, I met with that guy here last week on a Thursday night. I got a call, and I went down, looked it all over, and I talked him in. Now we're going to go work with Aaron and get it all done right. And he started building, and he didn't know he's from Wisconsin. He didn't know all the rules and regulations. As soon as the neighbor said he had to have a building permit, he went right up and got it. And I think he just doesn't understand everything. So I told him we got to work with Aaron and we can get this done. So.
I think there's one thing we need to look at in the future here. And because I've talked to that gentleman too, and the problem is with the application process. I don't know this, but I've been told by a lot of people that the application process is very confusing and long, and it's you have to do it all online, and you do not get any extra help. I mean, you have to do all your homework, put it all in the application, and then you'll hear back. So, I mean, I think we need to look at the application process. If we can streamline that or make it more user-friendly, you wouldn't get as many frustrated people on the process. I get this a lot, so I think that's something we should look at.
The company that we use for the permitting process, Schneider Beacon, is who we use for our website with all that. They are in the midst of rolling out an update to the permitting software, and we've seen what the new system looks like, and it is has a much more user-friendly appearance to the whole thing, and then we can look at the content of our permit and as well. But hopefully, I don't have a timeline yet on when we'll have the new system running, but hopefully soon, and that will at least make operating and using it a little friendlier, and then we can look at the content of the permit as well.
Who's first, me or Jack?
Go ahead, Bob.
One thing I was going to say is that in the process, it is a confusing process because we have so many different categories to deal with and whatnot. But Aaron, from my perspective, Aaron works with people and he tries to walk them through it pretty decent from what I understand. And looking at his email trail and his conversation trail, he works with people pretty well. It is a confusing issue, but unless we change the format, it's going to be confusing no matter what. So what you said, Eric,
I get a lot of complaints from townships because they get is an email, and that usually goes to the clerk, and they get 7 days to respond. Most of the time, the clerk doesn't read it for 3 or 4 days, and by the time they get it, it's already done and over with. So, I'm just making suggestions that we should probably relook at all that stuff. So,
right, we have to notify the townships so that they know what's going on in their municipality. But if we allow them more time to look at it, it's going to take longer to get your permit.
Well, the way it used to be done, and it actually worked pretty good. You get a paper application. The guy has a building has to come out to the township supervisor and get their signature to sign off on it. Not knowing that they don't have the authority to stop anything, or they just have they have the right to know what's going on and and make suggestions or raise some concerns. So it always worked well in the past with the paper application, and applicants didn't mind tracking down a supervisor to get his signature on it. So
Food for thought.
Jack,
I was just going to mention, Greg said something about getting together with Aaron Aaron's going to be on at least a 2-week quarantine. Is that not right, Jeff?
Yeah, his, yes, I'll leave it at that.
Greg, did you have?
Well, I was just getting back to the permitting part of it. I mean, in 30 years of being a township official, we always did the paperwork, and it saved a lot of confusion. And the only thing I have against the computer part is if you screw it up and then you say pay $750 and you go to a hearing and you lose your $750. Back in the day when we sat down, we discussed it, you pretty much knew if your permit was going to go through before you even had the hearing. And that's the way I think we got to get back to. More service, sit down and explain everything, and I think it'll go a lot faster.
I'm not aware of anybody losing money on a permit. Is that?
Well, last week or 2 weeks ago at that Board of Adjustment, they denied his permit, so he lost the $900.
Okay.
And that could have been worked around. That could have been solved. That's the way it is. So. It's always been that in the past. If you lose at your meeting, if you lose your permit, you lose your $900. There's no refunds.
Yeah, there's no.
But that had to be a Board of Adjustment, and they're over us anyway.
Right.
Yep. They bring their suggestions to us, is what they do. Or they send it down to the planning commission, and then it comes to us.
But yeah, the planning commission, but the Board of Adjustment one where the guy lost his bid to build a house, that's over and above our
jurisdiction. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I along with Jack have been involved with the labor negotiations. We had a meeting last week on that, on combining the 3 engineers onto the 49ers plan. I think we had a mutual agreement on that. Also met with the EDA. I missed the second meeting that was on Friday because I was on my way back from the lake, so I couldn't be involved in that. So yeah. And then I was just going to comment on where we are on that, and we've kind of already discussed that. So I'm not going to go over that again. So
okay.
I guess I can't think of anything else right now. I got a watershed meeting coming up here in August, so I'll let you know what happens. Anything else?
Just a reminder, I guess I plan on being on leave the first week of August. I will dial in for the work group session and stuff and have that set up for Tuesday.
Oh, we got any bids on our door down there yet or anything done on that?
We're still looking into some options for that. So
Is Tess doing that, or could be she's the building maintenance?
Yes. Yep.
So, Greg, if you got any questions about that, you can probably email Tess on that, get some updates.
Okay. Because I think, Bob, you've got pretty much covered on the street department, haven't you, with the city? Have you discussed it a lot?
We've got the information presented to the city. It would have to have a public hearing and a discussion as to vacating or allowing us to go into their right of way. It's either allowing us to go into the right of way or vacating. But to do that, I mean, we've got a fair amount of money that we're talking about spending to move the sidewalk over 8 feet, expanding and reconfigure the parking lot and whatnot. So if we're looking at budget and whatnot, the city sounded like they were against the idea. Public hearing required. I look at the cost aspect and, how are we gonna afford it from that perspective?
Couldn't we just change the door? We wouldn't need to have all that other stuff done, would we?
We can change the door, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, question, Jeff, are you gonna be on for the next EDA meeting though?
I can be, yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't have to be. I mean, it's your vacation, so I mean,
But it's the 5th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering.
Yeah. No, I'll be able to dial in. That's fine.
Well, again, I agree with Eric, you don't have to, but I mean, that's when we're going to finalize the application, correct?
Yeah. And by vacation, I'm not hanging out on the beach. I'm not going fishing like somebody did. We're going back to work and get that house finished and done so we can sell it. So I'll be happy for a quick break.
well, I did 3 Zoom meetings while I was on vacation, and
You did.
I was catching, what from somebody else about that, saying, "What are you doing? We're supposed to be on vacation here."
Yeah.
I understand.
I would recommend, Eric, that maybe you should go back on vacation, because while you were gone, it rained, and now it's quit raining.
Yeah, I know, and we need rain. Yeah, I got some crops that are stressed out here because,
It doesn't show any for quite some time either.
yeah, I know it, and that's when we need it too. So,
Yeah.
okay, public comment. Is there any public comment? Dennis, you want to say anything? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn unless somebody else has more stuff?
I'll say I'll swing by and pick up my fish, Eric, but then I'll also make a motion to adjourn.
Too bad it's already 8 hours. Can't get it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Aye. All right, good enough. See you guys.
Thank
See you guys.
11:17. Have a good day, everyone.